Okay, so I guess we can start right now. We've got a green light from our team. It's always very exciting when you are running the live webinar because things can happen, and of course we will do a little bit of a housekeeping here. But big welcome from David as well.
Hello, glad to be here.
Fantastic, and of course from myself, and we're gonna do the introduction, but using the opportunity, of course, it would be amazing to see on the chat where you guys from. We're running this in the Zoom format so that it's a little bit more chatty, so that everybody can see each other, and that's amazing because sometimes we miss out the conversations in a different platforms, but not in here. So hello from Poland, from UK, Denmark. Morning, Adrian. Hello. And Romania. And or good afternoon. Here we go. And thanks, Mateusz. Okay, and we've got US, fantastic, Florida. Of course, we are jealous because I'm pretty sure you've got some nice weather over there. And we've got Trinidad and Tobago. That's really cool. That's very cool. David, have you been there?
I know, I would love to go to Trinidad. I've never been there yet.
Me
Yet.
too. Me too. Me too. So so there is something we can do together, Rick.
Let's go do the next podcast there.
Exactly, exactly. So Germany, the Netherlands, lovely, Slovenia, Canada, Bavaria, Germany. Hello, hello, Emilio. And thanks so much, Rick. You're too kind. Thank you, thank you. We are invited, David, so that's good.
Yeah.
We would love to. We would love to for sure. And okay, let's see. Northern Minnesota, that's amazing. And the lakes. Oh, I love that. I love that. So Germany, Bucharest, Romania, Poznan. Here we go. So there is a very nice audience. If you guys, just for the housekeeping, if you just joined, check, here we go, then please tell us where you're from, because we really like to see the whole world joining. It's always very joyful. South Africa, amazing. Yeah, Iceland, cool. My friend, by the way, lives in Iceland and I've been there many times. Okay, oh, Bonaire, okay. Zagreb, Croatia, very good. Moon, we wish. Not today, or maybe today, if you're going to like the webinar, we're going to take you to a bit of a moon. Okay, great. So I guess we can start, and let's do the introduction. So I'm here with David, and let's do an intro because it is a joint webinar in between Yubico and CQURE, and it's always an absolute pleasure. And let me do, of course, a quick intro, and I'm going to pass it to David. And using the opportunity, I hope everything is also well clear, and that you can, of course, have the good quality of not only a vision but also of the voice. So let's start officially our webinar. So I'm Paula Januszkiewicz, and what I'm simply doing for a living at cybersecurity for the past like 20 years. But I'm on kind of like the good side, but kind of a bad side, because my life has been always around penetration testing and incident response. And even though I'm the CEO of CQURE, which by the way I established 15.5 years ago, almost going to be 16 years, which is a crazy long time, then basically I'm not stepping out from technology and I'm still doing the pen tests and also the incident response, which is really cool. But that's, I believe, enough about me. And David,
Yeah,
back
so
to
I'm
you.
thank you. I'm David Treece, and I am the VP of Solution Architecture here at Yubico. And I have been in the identity management space, authentication space for way too long, over 20 years, working on ensuring authentication actually is protecting users. So I've been with Yubico for actually 7 years now, and I've seen it grow and to provide that highest level of authentication. So it's very exciting to work with a company that really has a passion for authentication and protecting users to the point where it really matters. Really matters to not just to their online, but to their life. So Yubico is the global authenticator leader. If you haven't heard of us before, making the YubiKey is the primary product that we have, where we have over 1,000 integrations with tech partners, easy to hook into, leveraging open standards. With over 4,500 customers out there, as well as beyond that, many individuals use the YubiKeys unto itself. So, as well as high-tech companies, and if you didn't know it, we've sold over 28 million keys out there. So a lot of keys out there over the years. And it's been a great to see them being used and adopted. And happy to be here. Very excited to talk with Paula on how to protect and how to ensure that the attackers don't get in. So take it away, Paula.
Thank you, thank you. And I can see that Mike wrote that I love my YubiKey Nano. So I wrote that if you guys are using YubiKey, please share it on the chat, because it would be great as well to see what kind of version you are using. And I'm using it too, and my team is using it too. So so basically, yeah, it's a kind of a commodity thing. Yeah, so everybody is using YubiKey for that. Okay,
We love
good.
to hear the stories. We love to hear the stories of how people use them in ways that we've never expected, or how
Absolutely.
are.
I would love to hear some of these stories, that's for sure. Okay, so Alexander is using version 5 NFC, also YubiKey Nano, and so on. So yeah, David, have a look at the chat and you will see basically who is using what. And just a couple of words as well. So that's basically about us a little bit. So what we do though, and first of all, we use YubiKey, and we are not reselling anything. So just for the reference, we are an independent team, but Yubico, it's so cool that it's always good to have a joint webinar to discuss different options. So how Yubico can actually help you. And while we do the bad side of things, so we are getting inside different companies, performing the penetration tests and so on, Yubico very often is the answer. And that is basically what we would like to share with you, how it could be an answer, to what kind of things it could be an answer, so that we understand the bad side, which I'm going to play. And I love to play be the bad one in some sense. And David's going to be the good one. Okay, cool. So we got that, and of course this presentation, both from Yubico slides and also our slides, is available under the following QR code. You can download it, no registration, nothing. So just feel comfortable and basically get the slides, yeah, so that you can actually sit and enjoy, yeah. So that's the case. So just to have like a little quick setup, if you have any problems with watching this webinar, it's so important because things can happen, yeah? Please, we need to keep it smooth without any hesitation. Then basically you can technically reconnect, yeah? So depending how you are connecting, but you can reconnect, that's what we always expect. And if basically something happens, Zoom crashes, if it's connected through the YouTube and the YouTube breaks, whatever happens, then basically we are always sending it at the chat, or we're going to be resending mail campaigns as well for you to reconnect, or in a worst case, we will reschedule it. But that's if something really horrible happens. So we are not expecting that. And of course, if there's any issues and you cannot connect back again and so on, you can always drop us an email, because we are monitoring that mailbox for this webinar. So that basically if you send it, there is a Kate, as always, hosting our webinars on the other side, and then Kate will support you. And that's our Secure Academy account over there. Kate is with us. Exactly. Thank you so much, Kate. And basically, if you have any questions, please also ask Kate. Yeah, so if you basically are with us, you also know the character that Kate is doing impossible things with webinars, and that is basically what it is. Anyway, let's jump into a little bit of stats, and then we got some demos for you as well. And as you can see, 43% of all cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses, which is also quite an interesting perspective, because this is a summary of 2023, 2023, and 2022. So we collected some statistics. 2024, it's not over yet. So basically, we don't see the statistics summing up the year. And we are relying always on the ones that are potentially popping up or summarizing the year. And that means that technically everybody can leverage different security measures, whether we are talking here about the enterprises, or we are talking more about the about these smaller companies, then basically we've got solutions, yes, for that. So there are different mitigations, different options that we could leverage, and that is also something that we would like to talk about. What is interesting is that 64% do not have a security incident response plan. They don't know what to do when things happen, which is also a bit of an issue because it is also important to maintain hygiene while the incident happens. And that's something that we're going to be also talking about. But then we've got something interesting here because that's the identity compromise statistics. And as you can see, we've got 70% of a previously compromised passwords from like a previous year's breaches are still in use. And I'm really interested about what is your opinion about that, David, because it sounds like a very obvious problem for the organizations. But is there something that like a end user could do really for that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, identity is the important thing, and as we'll talk about a little further, passwords are nowadays just easily stolen, right? So one thing that we've done at Yubico is ensure that the product works across the ecosystem. So the idea is that hopefully the individual can use a YubiKey or even other products following the same standard to easily be able to leverage it without having, maybe if the company isn't going through that process, to be able to protect them systems. But the idea is that you can do it as an individual as well as a company. Because nowadays, mostly a lot of people are just like hooking directly from their personal computer up to a cloud service all the time. So the hope is that they can be using that, and a lot of people do use YubiKeys individually.
Thank you. And also we're going to be addressing that 61% in the today's webinar because it's like the breaches that involve credentials, whether they can be stolen via social engineering or hacked using brute force. Well, okay, but of course we could say that multi-factor authentication could help. And that is basically also the direction that we would like to get to show you all the possible options with the MFA and the way how we can be implementing it. Okay, in the meantime, while I'm going to be getting into the MFA part, because let's start with the meat, as we say sometimes. David, there is also the question to you from Kay. Yeah, so in the Q&A section. So just to direct you to this one.
Okay.
Cool. So you've got a usage of the MFA and conditional access. And of course, like warming up a little bit and starting smoothly, we should basically know and enable MFA. That's a default thing. But we basically know that MFA consists of at least 2 types of elements. And there is something that you know, which is going to be the password, passphrase, for example, a password that only we know, and that could be PIN or any type of code and so on. And it's basically information that we keep in secret, something that you've got. So it could be a token, phone, authenticator app, and so on. So physical item, such as like telephone or device key that we are talking about, resembling a pen drive or computer with downloaded certificate. And in general, we use, for example, phone either as a device on which we configure the designated app where we can accept different operations such as login or basically SMS and so on. So in general, this is basically something that we got. And there could be even a scratch card, technically, with codes as in the old times, but this is really something that's very rarely used right now. Or it could be something that you are, as we know, which covers biometric, fingerprints, shape of one's iris, face features, voice timbre, and so on. So these kind of mechanisms are way more difficult to implement and at the end to verify as well. However, of course, when we are implementing them correctly, they can assure the highest level of security, which is going in a different ways because of the different AI solutions that we are using that could also try to potentially, especially within the voice fake case, try to mimic potentially our voice. But anyway, in it all, multi-factor authentication is just another security barrier. While we are using that kind of a protection, then we'll be asked to verify always our identity in some kind of a way through SMS, as we mentioned, device, and so on. And at the end, thanks to that kind of a solution, attacks like password spray and so on, well, depending on the implementation, may not be possible. And that is something that we would like to touch base on. So starting with multi-factor authentication and also the conditional access, there's a couple of things to add. And we know that there are possibilities to bypass multi-factor authentication, but what is absolutely crucial to talk about is that not all of the different multi-factor authentications or multi-factor solutions are the same. And before we get into the demo, the stage is back to you, David, because there's a couple of things that we will need to discuss.
Sure. Thank you. So, right. So any multi-factor authentication is better than a single password. Absolutely. So whatever you can, and sometimes systems are limited to be able to provide an SMS or an OTP text, but the attackers are getting advanced on that to be able to bypass that and put up fake websites to steal those, still a shared secret with the SMS or one-time passcode or even a push. The attackers have gotten pretty sophisticated to be able to get around that. They're constantly innovating on how to bypass things. So what we would call phishing resistant solutions, which are more based on pure public key cryptography, like smart cards, but also FIDO. And we'll go through a demo of how FIDO actually works to protect you. But what we do at Yubico is we provide all capabilities and work with companies to ensure that they get to the phishing resistant capabilities. But sometimes just based on your systems and so one-time passcodes might work as well. So this is sort of how we think about how to protect users from just being able to do anything to doing what can be better. And sometimes we know that takes time.
Awesome, thank you. So let's get into the demo. First of all, we're going to bypass MFA, and there's a couple of options that we got. And depending on how you've also seen our previous demos, we were playing with Evil Jinx, and now we're going to get into Evil Go Fish. But before I explain a couple of details about it, it is important to know that you've got a possibility to steal someone's cookie. So to get the context of someone's session, and then basically you are able to resubmit or rather submit that cookie into your browser, and you are able to impersonate into someone's session. And depending on how we look into this, sometimes we don't really have an option to fix things, but then maybe we could use some external factors so that we are able to support ourselves so that eventually this possibility it's not there, but there could be potentially a conditional access, or there could be potentially the ways how you are able to use the physical key to actually protect yourself. And let me show you a couple of things here. So first of all, we've got a dashboard, and within this dashboard, you can see that there has been some things already going on, and we're gonna go into the Evil Go Fish. So as you can see, this is also the solution that we are using for phishing. So very, very good solution that you could use. And on the left side, you've got like the options that are allowing you to send different kind of phishing campaigns. So for example, we've got over there the email sending profiles, where you can see that we're gonna be using that kind of a gate kind of thing. So that there's going to be the no reply from which we're going to be actually attacking users. And over there is an email and SMS templates, also same story, where we are actually configuring the certain template where we're going to be sending an email or SMS template that's going to look like that. And that's going to be our source. So just to tell you and show you all the details. So there is a Paula at CQURE PL and send you a certain type of a document. So this is how we're going to be leveraging it. So the next part over there, you can see that we've got as well here users and groups. And these ones is specifying us the target group, and that target group we are able to adjust. So over there we can add basically loads of emails. This is a demo, so we're going to be using only a couple of those. And everything is pretty much prepared. So we have who's going to send it, who's going to be receiving it, and what kind of stuff. And we've got over there the campaign. And over there we can be basically setting up a new email campaign. So we could actually name it somehow. And then here you're going to see that that's the evil jinx URL that someone's going to be getting to, and we are sending it to the target group 1. So as you can see from the attacker perspective, it's a super easy thing to do. And when we do launch, then what is happening? We are sending emails. So here you've got email, SMS sent, and then you've got details about what has happened. So this is like a very good status check, very nice visual. I would say amazing, because it gives you a very good feeling about the success potentially, but we're gonna of course trigger the success a little bit, and therefore we can also check how that thing is going to look like, particularly from the user. Of course, that email might never go through the anti-phishing, anti-spam solution, depending on how we're going to be testing it and warming up the domain before. Yeah? So just for the reference, that has to be done before. And when the user basically is going to be getting into the particular mailbox, we can verify that situation, because we need to get the credentials of the user. Yeah, so user is signing in, everything is okay over there. User is basically at that point getting into the authenticator app and then basically entering the number to sign in, and then we are having user to get into the mailbox. Yep, so this is basically Outlook online. And there is an email, and we got that email basically. So because we got an email, you can see that that's the CQURE Academy. So that actually went through. There is some kind of a contract that is waiting for to be reviewed and signed. And if we do have a look into review and sign, then we're going to be redirected to that kind of a website. What is even more challenging is because this is a URL like that. If you're using any kind of a URL supporting techniques that will be basically first verifying through Office and so on, then that URL might not look that clear. Yeah. So basically the next part is that user might be thinking, okay, does it make sense to sign it, or what kind of agreement that is, and so on. So this could be a very good, and it's happening, of course, through phishing. This could be a very good path for actually stealing users' credentials. So we are right now redirecting user to login msupdate07.online, which is with the certificate. So that's something that's not a problem to buy. This is our domain, and user is putting on the user's email. User checks for the padlock is there. So these URLs are always very, very long, and that could be challenging. And then basically the user has to approve the sign-in request, but this time it is happening on our website. So we are right now capturing the data that user is putting on, not only the username and password, which is very simple. It kind of reminds me the attack from the 90s, but here we are actually getting the cookie. So we're gonna be getting it. So here there's nothing special that the user received. We might be actually sending some kind of a follow-up email to a user so that user will never figure out that something happened. But as you can see, our guy over here actually provided us a captured session, because the website he was providing credential on wasn't the original Microsoft website. And as you can see, it's quite a lot of data over there. So we can see that there is quite a lot of credentials that we could see, and we can see that user's password, but also we can get basically the user's cookie, and that is important for us to be able to actually impersonate into this particular session. And as you can see, there is actually view tokens. Yeah, so finally we managed to get the token, and we're going to get that particular token. So let's copy it, because yet again, we don't need credentials because there is a multi-factor authentication turned on. Yeah, so let's keep it that way. And then login microsoftonline.com, this time original one. We are technically here leveraging this user. Yeah, so here we go. But what is the most important part is that well, we don't really have any other way to submit the cookie if we don't have a kind of a cookie editor plugin over there. So we're going to use that, and then we can just clean up everything. Yeah, and then basically we can import the cookie over there in the JSON format. And so cookies were imported. So this is super simple. And then right now, when we are refreshing the browser, you are able to see that, well, here we go. User is actually logged in. And right now, we are that particular user. So from the attacker's perspective, we can confirm that we are actually Yoni, and we managed to take over the user's mailbox. Okay, so as you can see, there is the information about the captured session. You can see also some other details, and what we will be able to do is that to escalate it even further. So we can, for example, take the Ioni's account and then send data and email to the other users, maybe. Yeah? But anyway, let's go to portal and then office.com. So let's try that. And this is, of course, the original website. Now we're going to log in as Alex. So nothing particular over there. So here we're going to be signing in. And over there, as you can see, so that's a different story. We've got a possibility to sign in with our passkey, or we got an option to choose the security key. And here we are putting on the pin. And this is the good part of that. And then we have to touch our security key. So if you are using Yubico, that's basically how, for example, it's going to look like. And at that moment, you are able to sign in to the mailbox. So right now, let's basically have a look into that. So we can review and e-sign. And the next part over there, we are redirected once again to our website. We get into the fishy website, so we can put in the data over there as well. So we get, it's going to be Alex. So Alex, it's not aware of what's going on. Alex is going to put the password. Yeah, so here we go. Yep, then we got this. And then basically we cannot really sign in that user over there because this is not a credential that is basically used for Alex in that place. So at the end, this is a very, very good method that allows you to actually block that kind of a situation that I was demonstrating before, even though, of course, we can capture Alex's credentials because Alex put the password somewhere. Yeah, so we cannot really prevent from user putting on passwords somewhere. So as you can see, submitted data, but maybe the password is potentially used somewhere else. But the thing is that in this kind of a situation, you don't really have any kind of a cookie that we are able to submit later on in the browser. And this is, by the way, a very good reason why using the solutions like YubiKey totally makes sense. Or maybe I should rather say security key. And YubiKey, of course, is an example over here. And it's worth to discuss how the FIDO2 in such case as the next step works. So David, back to you.
Thank you. At one level, that was an amazing demo, but also very scary. You can just see how those things can be stolen. We're going to walk through a little bit, from that site about how the authentication actually works. And we work very closely with Microsoft on the open standards to make that all work. So we see the word passkey, there's a device-bound passkey, which is FIDO2 on a YubiKey. So what happens is it's a two-part process. So one thing that's really important that you need to do is you need to register your security key with the site that you want to be able to go to. So that initial process is that you register the YubiKey, and which is the relying party, which would be Microsoft in this case for that example. It actually then sends back a challenge with the user information. So this is Paula, her account name, and which then the actual browser is also in the middle of that checking too. It's like, oh, did the place that the person just went to is the same place that's coming back? So it's also doing its double checks to make sure no one's in the middle trying to steal any information. And it builds in that origin information, which says it's Microsoft.com and there's a particular tenant, and be able to send that information down to the YubiKey. And the YubiKey then actually generates the private key, the private public key pair to be and associating the key handle, which is like the user ID, and then passes that information back up, the public key information, and it's public. Hence, the magic of private public key pair is if you have the public key, you really can't know what the private key is. So you got to have that private key stored and protected in hardware, and that's the key part. But that information is passed up, as well as we'd say attestation, which says this public key is from a YubiKey that that has a particular version number on it and has been validated by the FIDO Alliance in the FIDO case. So that information is then passed up all the way up back to the relying party, Microsoft in this case, to be able to double check it. Also even checks that, did I make this request myself? So there's all these, checks and balances in place. So then we go to the next slide, we then go to when we log in. So now we're going to authenticate. So user goes to the website and says, I want to log in. And at that point, that with the public key, there's a challenge that is created with the user ID, and that's passed down. The client then at step 3 is actually checking as well to say, is it coming from the right spot? So it sends that origin information, said, yes, this did come from Microsoft. Now, YubiKey, go do your checks to say, is it the user I know? Did it come from the place I want to know? Because if those information aren't correct, the actual credential process won't work. Because it'll say, I don't even know who you are. I have a request, but I can't tell who you're coming from. So if it all works, then at that point, it signs the information and passes the credential ID with a signed response. And the client does its own check, or the browser does its own check as well to say, did this come from the right place? And finally, it gets to the point where it goes to Microsoft, the website, the relying party, checks the signature based on its public key, and did it actually do the origin? Did this request actually come from me? And at that point, then you get a successful login. So it provides a number of checks and balances in the ecosystem to be able to ensure that you are who you are and you are the person that has the key that you make. So a higher level of assurance than just the password that anyone can use on the internet, or even just a SMS text that I get.
Thank you. Fantastic, David. Thank you. I'm actually wondering then, within our next demo that we got, how potentially YubiKey or in general the security key could help out in the case where we are doing the password spray, because this is basically the website, and we are using it for the authentication to some provider like Microsoft, for example, that is on the other side. But when there's an infrastructure, that's also a bit of a challenge, right? So
Absolutely. So no, absolutely. I mean, so passwords are compromised all over the place, and we're not going to be protected about from a password to being stolen to being used. But a lot of it is the next step. So the system say, "Oh, I see you logged in with a password. I have no idea where you came from. What is your second factor?" And that's, if you don't have that second factor, and that could be any of the second factors, you can't get forward. But it's shockingly and surprisingly is there's so many places that only just take passwords, or they're technically only can do passwords, which is a scary place that we're at.
Absolutely, that's another point. And also what is important to mention is that there is a solution for that, because every time we do the pen test, one of the first things we start the whole activity with is actually a password spray, which means that we are immediately getting in because there's always some kind of a user with the company name 2024, and then we are becoming that user. And then the next thing is, what else can we do? Because when you are already a domain authenticated user, then it's a completely new set of attacks that we are able to do, and they unfortunately, yet again, in most of the infrastructure, work.
As well as I would add to what Paula says, it's really, really hard to get rid of a password, especially in Active Directory. Even if you're trying to get around it, a lot of times those passwords just stay around, and then all of a sudden a VPN client ends up on the edge, and then that no one knows about. Oh, just put it there temporarily, right? And then it's just left there, and all you need is a password to get in.
Absolutely. So let's do some evil first, and then let's talk about how we are able to do the good stuff. And of course, guys, in the meantime, if you have any questions, please go ahead. I see you've been asking them, but anyway, if there's something that pops up, then let us know. We'll be happy to assist. In the meantime, let me start with a demo, and let's see what we can do. First of all, we're going to do simply a password spray, but we're going to do a password spray that escalates a little bit. And for that, we're going to use putty or putty, as sometimes we say in Europe. In the US, you say putty, so it's a bit of a difference. But anyway, so we've got a CQURE. And then over there, we're going to be getting into the case where we're going to be simply performing the password spray. But for that, it's going to be fun because we're going to be first using the list of users that we got. That is already something that we have gathered. And we have over there, as you see, Brian Williams, Jeremy Brooks, Craig Nelson, and all the other names and last names that we know basically what company is using. So we put them in the users TXT file. The next part of that is going to be to look into solutions that would allow us to take that list and also use it all together with some certain password lists. And for that, we could use the crackmap.exe. So this is always something that's very difficult to pronounce for me. And based on that, we will be moving forward where we're going to be just trying these particular usernames for the password. For example, let's use, as we used before, Spring24, for example. So over there, we've got the DC. So we got a domain raccoons.pl, we got a users txt, and we're going to be using the Spring24, for example. And crackmap.exec, yep, here we go. Then basically that's something that's a tool. It's not our tool, of course. It's a community tool that allows us to see what kind of different combinations we got or we do not. And as you see, that red minus, it's not working. So we could use the last moment the user was changing password. So March 24, that's in my language. And over there, you can see that there is actually a user that basically could potentially have that kind of a password. Yeah, so that's the Jeremy Brooks, yeah, with the plus over there. So of course, this is already like 50% of success, because if we are that user, we could continue on the further exploration of that domain. So we started with as literally a 0, and then we are able to take that and then, for example, use it further down. But then before we do it, just a quick check on the event log. So how that actually looks like, because it's also a bit of a tricky when we are not monitoring it in detail. What is important to know, it's the logon type 3, which, by the way, is actually the network logon amongst all the logon types. And then over there, when we just go to the 4625, which is, by the way, as you see, the failed logon attempt, then we are just seeing that that particular spray was happening because there is many failed logons. And then one of the logons that we will be able to catch, it's going to be the maybe 4624, let's see, potentially 4634, could also show us some information. And let's just go down, down, down. And 76 is also an option, which demonstrates us that Jeremy Brooks is actually there. And after that, we've got a Jeremy Brooks login, which is, again, logon type 3, network login, successful login of Jeremy Brooks. We can see, though, from which IP address that happened. So that's a little bit helpful, if, of course, you manage to capture that kind of information. Yeah, so having that in mind, we've got a possibility to actually get that data and then potentially use it for the further steps. Yeah, so for example, on that point, we could be using it in the, for example, attacks that are leveraging service principal names, so the SPNs, where we're going to be querying domains, full domain for the SPNs, because what we can for the SPN is to basically request for the Kerberos ticket that we will be able to crack. Yeah, so here we are talking about the curb roasting attack. So in packet get user SPNs, it's a very simple one. Then we are just specifying the DCIP and with the password that we used before for Jeremy Brooks. And because we are authenticated to domain user, we are able to list all the accounts with service principal names because users can do that. And you can see that there is a Joshua Lynch and also the SVC 8 immigration, which sounds very interesting and sounds quite powerful maybe. And we will be able to ask for the ticket for that. And we can see that the password last set was some time ago already. So maybe there is a chance that password never expires and many other things that could give us a good set of factors for a success over there. So anyway, what we're going to do here, so let's have a look. So we're going to do set SPN minus L for listing. And then we're going to take this name for the SVC 8 immigration. And then we're going to paste it here so that you can see that, yep, confirmed. You can see that there is actually that kind of an account, and we will be able to actually request a ticket for this particular account. So this is potentially how it could escalate, where we've got the possibility to leverage that user authentication by using the username and password. So the next part of it is that to verify, of course, what's our context. So just to show you more of that, because we could already continue with the attack without it, but you can see that DC $1, it's basically, that's our domain, and domain controller also has a set of tickets, a set of information, so service principal name, but also the possibility to get a ticket. But anyway, what is actually powerful here is that we've got the output curb hash. And if we're going to do cut curb hash, you've got basically that content that we have requested. So right now we requested for the ticket, and then we're going to be getting it, and then we're going to be cracking it. Now, cracking it is going to be as successful and as long as the password strength is. So if we get a good dictionary, then that's really what it's all about, and good computing power, maybe for the brute forcing, because this is what it's all about. So it's best to get it for the username, yeah, not for the computer name, which is quite logical here too. So we're going to be using here for the demo RockU. Why not? And after a short moment, we're going to be basically also getting a password for the user that we leverage over there. And one of the user was this SVC 8 immigration. So here, as you see, we've got a loaded 2 password hashes with 2 different salts. Okay. And then in the moment, we're going to be getting the match. So it takes some time, of course, yet it's a demo, but it's still taking some time. We are going through that dictionary, and we're going to be getting it shortly, if, of course, it's in our dictionary, which may not be. Then we might want to start the brute force, which is going to take time. So again, stronger the password is, the longer it's going to take to actually brute force it. Yeah, so that's basically the setup. So this is a type of attack where we did the password spray, and literally from 0 to hero, here we go, now more of a hero, we will be able to actually escalate, because as you can see, we've got over there the Superman 22, which might be actually an account password for the SVC 8 immigration that would allow us to become someone stronger in the infrastructure. So that sums up a situation why there is a big need for multi-factor authentication as well in the infrastructure. But for that, of course, I'm giving the stage back to David to describe the process, of course, how we would be able to prevent the password spray and in general use the MFA in the infrastructure.
Thank you, Paula. And I've been answering questions, so I hopefully answer them as much as you can. But right, so when we talk about key factors for multi-factor, this is where we sort of walked through this before. But if you think about it from a higher level, and especially for any MFA that you are looking to put in, these are the important components. And to me, hardware with strong cryptographic authentication is a key base solution. So compared to a shared secret, so like a password is a shared secret, one-time passcode is a shared secret. So they're because they can be stolen in the middle. And where possible, it is important to be able to do a public-private key, where if you just steal the public key, it doesn't really matter that much. So, but to that other point is if you can only do one-time passcodes, having the component stored in hardware reduces your risk. And that can be a hardware that's in a hardware security module, in a YubiKey, on a secure element. It's important. The other important is origin bound. So the point of, I know that the request is coming from a place that I'm trying to go to. So this has been a challenge for a lot of the push notifications, because you would just get a push on your phone and saying, approve this request, approve this access. We have no idea where it's coming from. There's no visibility that it happens, and that it's actually in line in the sense of, I am doing an action and I expect a response, compared to I'm getting a response for no reason. And hence the attackers can, fake up the sites that you click on something and you really don't realize that you just approved something. The other component is user presence. And this is that back to, I am taking an action on a actual authentication process, compared to it's in the middle of the night, someone's actually trying to break in and you don't even notice it. So having that user presence is actually, okay, I'm doing something here. And this can also be a higher level with a user verification, which would be a fingerprint or a pen for the YubiKey, or a Face ID, for your phone. So it's basically it is something that I am doing. The other deal is that for many apps, there's no shared secret. So for a registration, it's unique to the site you're going to. So it's a unique credential for all of them. That way it reduces the risk of, if one is stolen, they can get access to everything. So one of the challenges with passwords is people reuse passwords, because it's hard to hold 100 passwords, securely in your brain. So having one or two is what everyone does. But the bad guys know that. So once they get one site compromised, they have that in a database. Back to password spraying, there's a high probability that that password is going to be used, in another spot. The other deal, secure backup, is what is my recovery process? If my strong authentication fails for various reasons, and it's very important to map out all those reasons and your sort of what your users go through. How do I make sure my help desk response, my recovery, doesn't reduce the security level so it's easy for attackers to go towards? We definitely see all kinds of attacks where people go to the help desk because they know that that is the weakest link in the chain. We're even seeing where attackers are now faking videos, and making fake sites of people, so that the whole face recognition is now being, at a higher risk than it was before. And then for us is we work with the ecosystem, is that it's supported, it's not separate unto itself. Because even though there are attacks, there are very smart people that are working and trying to get in concert to ensure it works all the same way. Because you don't want a solution to work one way, one in this spot, and another way in the other spot. We spent years working across the industry to help everyone. Because like I said, you will have all these bespoke technologies. And when you have unique technologies, having unique solutions adds complexity, and complexity is definitely the enemy of security.
Awesome. Thank you, David. So that actually brings us to the next part, because you mentioned native browser OS support, but of course, passwords are in so many different places. So let's get into the next stage, where we're going to talk about the pretty natural way of using YubiKey, which is, of course, let's say a browser. Yeah, and for the OS, it looks in a pretty similar way. And that is also one of our favorite subjects, which is the DP API. And also within the operating systems, because it's not just Windows, but I'm going to talk about Windows. There's different levels of cryptography used underneath to protect our credentials, which sounds amazing. But the thing is that if, of course, we are that certain user that stored the password in the browser, then no matter what we are using over there, if the secret depends on us, on who we are and our data protection API, so cryptographical information, then basically whoever is us is capable to get our credentials. And here is, of course, how the YubiKey is gonna help. But let's first talk about the problem, because it is something that I would love to share with you also from the forensic perspective, because there's much more credentials that we could use the YubiKey for than sometimes we might think, and that is actually the point to cover over there. So when we are looking into DP API, data protection API, honestly, as you might probably know from many previous webinars, it is, of course, one of my favorite subjects over there, because we are the team that probably is the first team that did the reverse engineering of the DP API. And we are, by the way, still doing it because there is a DP API in the cloud, which not sharing the details yet because we want to announce the research, but that's going to be in the other time, because we are not done with that yet. But in general, that cryptography, it's just everywhere and it relies on something. So it's so important to support yourself on some external factor so that it relies on something that is basically not within systems. And whenever we are thinking about the data protection API, also classic, the new generation, and so on, it's a subject to talk for hours. But eventually you can see that our secrets, and that's the main message today, they do depend on who we are. So they do depend on the MD4, they do for the domain users, they do depend on the SHA-1 for the local users, and then basically that kind of a value, so the MD4, so the user's password hash, or SHA-1 in case of a local user, basically is encrypting the master key that is encrypting directly or indirectly the cryptographic blob that we are protecting. So for example, a password. So the question would be, where in this chain we're able to put the YubiKey in? And let me show you how first it's just not really working as we would want, and where, of course, YubiKey could step in, not only for the credential protection, but also, for example, for the protection of the classic key pass, even, where we are able to rely the key pass database on the YubiKey, and what potentially if we do not. So the first demo over there that comes to place is basically related with extracting credentials and in general, seeing where things are. And for that, the question is how to technically get to the user secrets and where the user secrets are on and what kind of things they depend on. So right now we are not doing the full attack chain, but we are analyzing the workstation where potentially there could be something that we could protect, but we are not doing it. So let me actually get into the demo and show you that from two angles. The demo number one, it's pretty straightforward, honestly, because here we've got the Chrome pass. So users store the data in Chrome. And over there, when we open Chrome pass and we go to help about, you can see that this is from Near Software. You can also see that Freddy Krueger has stored the data for LinkedIn in the browser, in Chrome. Yeah, so it's very easy. Now, question of the universe would be how, also being a user, not necessarily an admin, but when you're going to be an admin doing incident response, forensics, and also listing where credentials are, this is crucial. By the way, side comment, nobody does this in forensics and also in the incident response, but it's so important what kind of credentials and different secrets are stored on the user's workstation that has been compromised. How else? Therefore, I have to show you this also from that angle perspective. So if you're going to get into the CQURE tools, for example, and then we got DP API, then CLS, there is a tool that is our favorite, or my personal favorite over there, which is a CQURE DP API blob searcher, which allows us, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit, to search through the whole C drive, through the whole analyze drive, for the places where credentials are stored, so that you can think how potentially you could actually protect them with the security key and what credentials do you ever use. So over there, we can get into the Freddy and then app data, local, Google, Chrome, and then we can do the recursive search, and then we can do the outputs to the CQ tools for the blobs, and then stream everything to the dpapi.txt. And after some time, we're going to see that we're going to get here a situation where we're going to get basically a file. We're going to get a txt file where if we do analyze it, so dpapi txt, what kind of potential key protectors are there? And key protectors, so this MK GUID, as we call it over there, they do have this identifier, and if they appear in this file, and if you see here the path, and if you can see here also the given algorithms, this is a sign that you are storing in this place some data protection API secret that most possibly can be protected by using the YubiKey. Question is, what's that? So that's one thing. If you wondered how many secrets potentially could be there. Now, another demo, and this is also the nice risk profiler, honestly. And another demo is basically related with the super quick analysis of the key pass. And key pass could be also protected by using the security key. And it could be, for example, the long and strong passwords that you can remember. But another one, it could be actually a security key. But if you decide to rely key pass on the Windows logon, this is the worst solution that you could pick. Just basically don't do it. Yeah. And the reason why you shouldn't do it, I'm going to show you so that you guys can see basically what is the potential way of how we are able to get access to keep us, while of course we've got an access to the machine. Now, as I mentioned before, we have the data protection API secrets that are dependent potentially on the user's password hash. So MD4 for the domain user or SHA-1 for the local user. So depending on the hacking position that you are in, but if you are that user, or if you manage, for example, even to pull out, do the DC sync and get the hashes of the users, sometimes we might think that, what's the deal? I don't need an MD4 of a regular user once I'm already domain admin. Maybe the point is not about that. Maybe the point is about going further, escalating to business systems, SAP, whatever the other solutions might be actually used. So for that, credentials must be protected. And how do we get access to that kind of a key pass thing? Well, let me show you. So this one is actually a pretty straightforward demo. So over there, within the analysis, I already have some backup sample, but let's use this CQ base. Basically, for that, I'm going to use the password secure. And as you see, that did not work. Yeah, so just for the reference, because it will be easier to demonstrate it, secure, and then of course that doesn't work. For the backup purpose, so here we go. We cannot see the password. I'm going to pull this a little backup into the backup so that we are only left with that. Now that master keys that we were getting over there, they are dependent, basically, they are dependent on our password hash, as we mentioned, or so in this case, MD4 or SHA-1, or in the case of a domain user, there's one more thing, which is this private key from the domain, but it's not really about that. It's more about focusing here. So there are technically, for the domain users, two ways to get access to the secrets, and for the local user, there's a one way to get access to the secret. We need to get SHA-1 of the user simply. So crack the MD5, get the clear text password, calculate SHA-1, and then we are ready to rock. Now, what we're going to do now is that over there, I have a decrypted master key of the Freddy. So I managed to basically do it by using the either MD4 or SHA-1. Yeah. But the point is that if the Freddy relies key pass on Freddy's logon, then we can actually get it. Let me show you one cool thing. The CQ DPAPI blob searcher, so the tool that I was using before, we're going to use this time on a file, and we're going to do analysis, protected user key bin, and then we will specify the output to your tools maybe, and then on the screen. And just because we get an output, yeah, we can see the same stuff as before, it means we will be able to get access to that particular credentials. So I have a decrypted version of that. Yeah. So right now, what we're going to do, and what is interesting, KeePass is, by the way, protected by using SHA 512 and AS256, which is pretty good. So just a small comment. So now, what we're going to do is that we're going to use the CQ DP-API blob decryptor. And blob decryptor uses over there the master of the user, which I have decrypted already, the entropy for KeePass, which we don't have yet. We're going to get it in a second, and also the blob, which we do have. So entropy of KeePass is this string over here. So then we're going to do the following: CQ DP-API blob decryptor master. So I have it here. The entropy, which I have here, which is always the same, by the way. So here we go. And then we're going to use as well the blob, which is the key that we use that's protecting KeePass, which is in C analysis protected user key bin. Yeah, and that's it. So this is the clear text key that protects our KeePass database. Okay, so because it relies on the Windows logon, Freddy's logon, we can right now get into the step where we're going to be decrypting it. So K for key that we got, which I have in a clear text, and F for the base. So we get an analysis CQ base 1. And what this guy does, it decrypts the KeePass database that we couldn't get access to. Boom. And so I'm just going to copy that path. So here we go, enter, and then paste it here so that you can see that this is the file that I am opening right now. So here we go. And this time, the password secure, boom, it's going to work. So in general, KeePass or any other tool that relies on a Windows logon, it's a bad idea. That's why it makes so much sense, of course, to use any kind of a physical device, so security key technically, that will protect that kind of a database from the data protection API, which data protection API isn't bad by itself, it's actually very good, but that multi-factor, it is an additional and I think necessary feature that we need to bring in. And David, what do you think?
Yes, no, absolutely. Just sort of to follow up, getting close on time is that hardware back and hardware security is super hard to crack. So it is you need physical access. You need to be able to really get down into the very nitty gritty, and we work very hard to protect those private keys to the point of whoever has the private key, whoever has your password, is you at the end of the day, and the systems really don't know that. So it is really critical, and the industry has seen this over the last 20, 30 years, that hardware security is really what really provides that level of protection you need, especially it seems like, as Paula just noted or showed, there are myriad of ways that the attackers are going to be able to crack into your vaults and your ability. I mean, vaults are important. It provides a certain level, but it's really also ensure how secure are those things is really important, and you really have to dig into that.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Absolutely. And we are definitely on the top of the hour. So we talked about the three things over there. So one was the multi-factor authentication and the ways how we are able to support it with different solutions. Also, we talked about the password spray and how you could leverage the security keys in the infrastructure to basically prevent that and prevent the password spray to work. Yeah. And also, we talked about using YubiKey as a security solution that allows you to maintain not only your credentials, but also to access your credentials in multiple ways, so that eventually, even though hacker manages to get access to the user's workstation and gets the credentials, then still it's not an issue in this case. Well, it is an issue, but it's not an issue because the user's account will not be taken over because we are combining it with the security key. David, from your side, would you like to add something on the top?
No, I mean, absolutely. It's that to the point that, one is having MFA and having a secure way to do that, as well as just defense in depth. We've seen a lot of things of what happens if you get logged in, what do you get authenticated? Ensuring you have all of those additional practices in place, updated to the latest software, obviously with this OS, to ensure that you are protecting yourself. because it is a scary world out there.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Fantastic. So,
Yeah.
guys, if you have any questions, please totally let us know. I see, David, that you've been totally bravely answering all the questions. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your support. If everybody here is going to have more questions, please do not hesitate to ask us those. So, yeah, don't forget to get the slides as well. And for that, let me share the QR code once again. And every slide that we've presented, you guys are getting, so that you don't need to ask for that, so you just get it from that. As usual, no registration, nothing needed, and so on. And in the name of David, Yubico, CQURE team, Kate, and myself, we would love to thank you for your time, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And of course,
Really
please have a
appreciate
look.
a lot of fun collaborating with Paula on this, and very excited to see this and do this together.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, guys, and take care. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.